Okay, so welcome to Docaviv, the 23rd edition of Docaviv Film Festival here in Tel Aviv. We're holding a hybrid version of the festival this year, so we're both in person in theaters here at the Cinematheque and online. This is the last day of the festival, but we are going to continue and stream some of the films in the festival until the end of the month. So if you haven't seen the film that we are about to talk about, you're welcome to do it. I'm thrilled to be here with Guido Hendrikx, the director of A Man and the Camera. Hello, Guido. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you. Good. How are you?
Good to be here. My name is Yaara Ozery. I'm the program manager of Docaviv. And we'll be doing this conversation for about 30 minutes. And if audiences have questions, you're welcome to post them on the Q&A section or on Facebook. So Guido, first of all, it's a thrill to have your film here in the festival in the Depth of Field competition. We had your previous film, Stranger in Paradise, in the Depth of Field competition a few years ago. I think it was 4 years ago, right? It was 2017.
Yeah, I finished late 2016, so that should be 2017, I guess.
Yeah. And I think the first thing when we saw your film in the selection committee, when we saw this film, the current film, we were a bit triggered about how people are going to relate to it. Also, we discussed a lot about the premise of the film and how to communicate it with the audiences. And I think one of the things we were very happy about is that your previous film was really well received here, and a lot of people loved it and talked about it afterwards. And I think we kind of knew that the audience will have expectations for this film according to your previous film, which kind of like deals with similar ideas of hospitality, for example. So my first question to you is, how do you see the connection between the two films?
Good question. No, yeah, I think you are hinting on, of course, like in this film, like the concept and the fact that I'm, of course, not talking and this trying to develop this very simple idea of being behind the camera. Also, of course, it probably refers to being a stranger, how people might relate to the unknown, for example. But that was not, from the very start, not necessarily the idea. I mean, the basic core of the film. So it was something that more started to grow into the film especially while editing. During editing, we more worked on the identity, or maybe better said, the entity of the man behind the camera, and what kind of entity, like what kind of characteristics, what kind of feeling should it give. Especially in the first part of the film, when he points his camera at everything that he encounters, or she. In the beginning, maybe you don't know yet. No, but I mean, I can see the similarity in terms of like can people relate to a stranger or the unknown, which of course is, but then the other way around, maybe reflected upon in Strange in Paradise, because the actor is, you could say he could also be the stranger actually. But no, but it was, for the rest, I don't see many similarities. Maybe the only similarity is that I think in both films, the concept is quite important. So it's not only like the form of the film, like how the film treats the medium itself. I think it's something I always try to work on, but at the same time, every film, I believe that for me personally, I should always try to reinvent myself as a filmmaker. So I'm always afraid to repeat myself with the next film. So that's also something I'm trying to be aware of. So hopefully they're not, I can see some similarities, but I think there are more differences, I think.
Yeah, I think I meant more in a philosophical way than I mean, the films are, of course, not similar at all. They're even quite different from each other in the methods that you used. I wanted to go back a little bit and ask you about, you had to set some rules when you started filming. Can you tell us a little bit about these rules, the decisions that you made before you started the film?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, there were, I think, three main rules that I set myself. Because I do believe that limiting yourself is very important when you make a film, when you develop a certain concept. The first one was obviously that I could never speak, but that also included non-verbal communication. The second one was that once a door was being opened, that the person I was filming was the one who had to direct the encounter. So they were in charge, and they also decided when to stop. So it was a way of giving up my control, at least during the shooting period of being a director. And the third rule was to confine myself to ordinary people in ordinary environments. So that's maybe the biggest difference also maybe compared to Strange in Paradise, that like what was very important that I could only film places and people and surroundings where nothing happened. So for me, like it's a little bit intuitively, of course, but the more ordinary places in the Netherlands in this case, everyday places. That were the three rules.
There is something I think a bit peculiar about this tension when you speak about control, right? You gave the control to the people you are filming in each encounter, and they had the control of the encounter. You said even you used the word directing, but I think at the same time you had to be very much in control yourself, to not to react, not to direct, not to speak. So can you talk a little bit about how was that for you as a filmmaker, and maybe the times that this rule broke?
Yeah, I think I had to program myself a little bit like a robot in that sense. But at the same time, because I never knew exactly what was going to happen when the front door would open. So of course I had to react, but that could also only be intuitively. But like rules that I just mentioned, especially the first rule that I couldn't talk, that was of course obvious and easy, but in terms of non-verbal communication, that was a thin line to walk, because on the one hand, sometimes I had to like give a certain gesture to try to make the people maybe a little bit feel at ease, so that I wouldn't like make the impression of being a psychopath or something, because then I probably couldn't reach any level of intimacy with the protagonist. But there were moments that in the beginning, when I started developing and shooting the film, like the first shooting days, where people would let me inside, but I would respond, like, for example, when they would ask, "Are you working for a certain broadcaster?" And if I would not respond yes or no, then they would continue asking questions, because they knew I could not yes or no. And then all the tension dissipated, you could say, just disappeared. And then I had to throw away that material, because I needed to be very strict that if I gave them one thing in terms of that I could react to them, then it wouldn't work anymore. The film and all the tension would just be gone. So that's something I had to teach myself.
It's really interesting to see how this very simple act of filming triggers such strong emotions. with people, even if we're living in a world that we're constantly filming, we're constantly being filmed. There are surveillance cameras everywhere. We should get used to it, to the idea that someone is always filming us, and it's very interesting to see the responses. That they're so emotional. Some people are getting really violent when they don't get answers from you, and that for the fact that you don't ask their permission to be filmed. And I'm wondering if you have any, what were your thoughts about that when you started, and like, if you can tell me about,
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's true, like with everyone is being filmed without knowing in the surveillance camera kind of strictures, places. But of course, the difference is that in this film, there's a very clear physical presence of me being behind the camera. So there's, of course, a direct human interaction, which of course raises a lot of different responses, and also different responses compared to the surveillance camera society. Well, what, like, for me, the most interesting when I was developing the film, like just the first moment when the door opened. I mean, those people have these like conventions, like there are a lot of conventions, and also in documentary filmmaking and in handling a camera in general. Of course, you always ask for permission first, but also when you come at the door in the Netherlands, there are a lot of like kind of lotteries. Like people come at the door with a camera, and then they say you've just won 1 million or something. That's a very, and many people refer to these kind of, try to hold themselves to these conventions, and we're hoping that at a certain point I was going to talk and to release the secret, and there's the guy now standing with the prize behind the corner. No, but so that was something that happened a lot, which was interesting to me, because apparently this is such an unconventional approach, and it breaks with also like basic ways of how we deal with each other. That already created this strange tension that I found interesting in a strange situation, and also this power balance between the one behind and the front of the lens, and themes like vulnerability and how this is related to each other. So that's a little bit what my experience was.
And did you find your act of, because if every act of filming ignites some sort of power relations between the man behind the camera and the people that are in front of it, did you find any did you find your method, your practice in any way like breaking this contract, or like violating any moral or ethical issues in these power relations?
Well, I think it's definitely revealing it's revealing this relation in a sense, and because it's revealing this, and it's to a certain extent very transparent, because my presence, you can always feel my presence behind the camera. Normally, when we of course we all know the direct cinema verite, fly on the wall mode, and although this seems the same in the very beginning, it's actually the complete opposite. I'm more like a fly in the room, you could say. I'm always there, and my presence is always part of the drama of the scene, of the whole structure in that sense. So I for me this was it's about this. It's about, I think the film has this transparent element, which then probably asks a question like, how is this? How do people relate behind and in front of the lens? For example, for me, I felt very ashamed a lot of the times, and at the same time, I also felt a certain power, because I figure that a camera is a very powerful device, which almost inevitably forces people, one, to perform, to make a performance, and two, to reveal some of their vulnerability, so that you're always vulnerable when you're being filmed, I think. And maybe this relates a little bit to having the urge, or not necessarily the urge, but that someone actually invites you to perform. That's how cameras, in my view, work. So yeah, I think this is something that you could discuss when you have seen the film, and while you're watching the film. And also, of course, I think as an audience, it probably places you very much in the seat of the one who's being filmed. So how would I respond to this guy? It's in that sense, it can become, I think you feel a little bit complicit, because it's such this first person experience. That are like my ideas that I had before, and also that were created while making the film.
How do you think you would react if someone came into your door and knocked on your camera? Because I was asking myself during watching, when I was watching the film, I was asking myself that question all the time, and I think, in a sense, I thought that it has a lot to do with where you live, your sense of security, your gender even. I don't know, we've all seen films like Peeping Tom, and I was thinking that if someone would have knocked on my door with a camera without speaking, I would be terrified. And I don't know, it seems like it's such a different experience for each one of the people in your film.
Yeah, it is, I think, and it's hard to say what are the factors that decide how you would respond. Probably, yeah, of course, it has to do with the more deeper characteristics of that certain person. But also, I think time is a crucial element for me, at least. Like the exact moment when people would ring a door, I think it would make a huge difference how I would respond. But maybe that's me, because I can be in different moods. I can change these moods in quite a short period of time. But like the honest answer, of course, is that I could never tell you. I could never know. It would be a lot of speculation in the end, because you could only say, and now it's already too late, because if someone would do it now with me, then of course I would already be too much aware of the concept. So like, I think the whole power is that it's something you don't expect. So when you're confronted with this unexpected entity at the door, what will you do? And for me, like in the beginning, when I was working on this film, and I wasn't sure that it would be like a feature-length film or maybe a narrative documentary at all. I was more thinking about a video installation that would just maybe be like 25 screens or something, and just about the first 2 minutes or the first minute after the door opened, because that moment for me was the most magical always, because I saw people going through different stages, different emotions in a very short period of time. So a door could open and they could be surprised and like hopeful, but then 10 seconds later, or even 3 seconds later, they could be very angry and then frustrated, and then all these kind of like vulnerable or shy, and one person could have all these different emotions, which was but the moment I was being inside, which was also, or being led inside, which was also a surprise to me. That was the moment that I thought this could be maybe like the question we talked about before: what level of intimacy could you reach with this approach, with this unconventional way of making a film, documentary?
Intimacy and trust.
Exactly.
Really surprising.
Trust. Yeah. That's also for me was surprising, the amount of trust that was present in these encounters. So that came later, and then it developed into the film that you just saw.
Yeah, and it takes the film into a place where, you know, it's very optimistic in a way. I think people that watch the film can gain back their trust in humanity, if I can say that. And I wanted to share with you, if we're talking about that, I wanted to share with you, because it's nice. I mean, the film is here and people are talking about it, but you're not here with us, so you can't hear the debate. I wanted to share with you a Facebook correspondence between two film critics that posted something about the film. So one of them posted a screenshot of one of the later characters in your film that brings you inside his house and then later even leaves you there with your camera while he has to go somewhere else. So he posted a picture of him and he said, this is one of the, I'm translating from Hebrew, one of the nicest person you're going to meet on screen at Docaviv. And his appearance in this cinematic trolling of the year, a man in the camera will bring you back the trust in human beings in case you lost it somewhere in the way. And another film critic responded that this guy's name is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but A.B.
Up Wissel is his name,
and he said that I was so curious about him that I went back to the link and freeze framed the name on the door and searched for him in the credits. And I was trying to Google him because in the film he said something about how he used to be famous. But he didn't find anything, so he's curious about it. So I wanted to share with you, you know, how emotional the responses of the film, but also to ask you if you can share with us the story of Up.
The story of Up.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Yeah, no, but that about being a famous person, I think that was just like a joke in that sense, like a joke to his grandchildren. So he was never like a famous person in that sense. Maybe now he became a little bit, but no. But I was also, of course I was also a little bit overwhelmed by the fact that he I could stay in his house without ever having said a word to him. And he was, I mean, he is, I can understand that you will gain more trust in humanity after seeing this guy. And in the Netherlands there has been a lot of discussion, and this didn't exist anymore. And in the past, people would have like this little rope in their mailbox, so everyone could always like go inside. So you didn't need to lock your doors, basically. That was the idea. And that people thought that wouldn't exist anymore. But maybe that's also the difference between like the major cities and more the countryside, because I did shoot almost all the material on the countryside because I wanted to go to places where a camera would never go so easily, or where you would never expect the camera to be these days. But yeah, like the hospitality was immense, I think. And that was, I mean, when I was writing about the film and trying to get it financed, I also, you know, like I was focusing a little bit on the sociological aspect, like what are the reasons people let you inside? Is it maybe loneliness, or is it maybe like a certain vanity? But then this was also interesting for me that with Up, I think it was none of these maybe more cynical thoughts or cynical motivations, but it was like, it could also, that was something that I discovered. People could just like appreciate a camera or as like a device that's there, and it can be there, and I don't necessarily have a hidden agenda behind it. I just accept it because apparently he told me later that he has always learned that he should always let his door open to a stranger. He should never refuse a stranger, always offer him a meal. And I think he goes to church, and he is, I think, religious in that sense, which also maybe could play a part for, I mean, at least for him. On the other hand, the other people where I was led inside, they are atheists, so it's also could go either way, I think. But no, this is what I can tell you about Up. And yeah, I mean, probably would be nice maybe once to organize a Q&A with him, like what his exact motivations were.
That would be interesting.
But yeah, very nice guy, I think, indeed. Yeah, and special how he related to the camera these days. Yeah.
There is a famous quote by Derrida that also finished one of the other films that we are screening here at Docaviv. It's called The Filmmaker's House by Mark Isaacs. I don't know if you saw it.
I know Mark Isaac. He's from The Lift, right? No?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it says, he finishes his film with that quote that says, "An act of hospitality can only be poetic." And in his film, it relates very well to what he's doing there. We're not going to talk about that, but I think in your film, this is something that I was thinking that the acts of hospitality in your films are kind of like breaking this quote and even like making it a bit ridiculous, you know, because I think that a true act of hospitality exists in the film. But maybe I'm naive. I don't know. I wanted to know what you think about it. If you really believe that that we are able to hospitalize other people, to
yeah, of course. I mean, I think
this film,
yeah, you could say this film is definitely in favor of, or like a certain proof of that. Of course, if you could be like, the critical question you could ask, there is a camera present, of course, so it's hard to distinguish the influence of the camera and me as a person. So for example, what would happen if I would have
and also sorry for interrupting, but a camera, and also you're an editor also. I mean, you edit the film and you cut out the acts that you wanted to cut out, and you made an order of the things that you wanted to do.
That's true. But with this film, you always try to stay as close to the truth as possible. That's something very different than objectivity or reality that, in my opinion, doesn't exist in that sense. And when you make a film, it's always your creative treatment of reality. But like, the truth has more to do, of course, with a certain complexity of different elements and different perspective that can also go like conflict with each other. But no, for this film, like, in terms of the manipulation, is very little, I think, because if you notice, there's only like the first cut in the film, like within a scene, is I think after 30 minutes or 35 minutes, when the guy with the hat is drinking coffee. But until that moment, it also went every time with up, and that was also necessary, this transparency we needed. We also tried, if we would make more if we like a more heavy edit in that sense, then you wouldn't even believe, you would ask questions, what happened in between. So I think the film is really edited in slices of real time, I would say. Like real time is, like, for me, like one of the crucial elements that also distinguish documentary, maybe. You know, real time on screen. There are not many forms of art that have this. I think maybe even none that have this real time certain frame or quality, you could say. No, but so yeah, I do think, but I don't know if I completely understand the way that an act of hospitality can only be poetic. Then I would like to know what exactly, how Derrida would define poetic.
That's a question for another conversation.
But this is very, but I think in this film it's very banal. I think, you know, it's more like it's more the banality of every day. That's, I think, is more present, maybe, but maybe there's also a lot of poetry in that. maybe. In my opinion, I think it is. But no, I think that's all. What else to say? I'm a little bit maybe off track of what you asked in the beginning.
That's okay. I have a quick question from the audience.
Yeah.
From Tal Drori. In your opinion, what made some people trust you and enter you to their homes? And do you have an intuition how people will react?
What like the reason why they would trust me? That's a question, or like what do you mean with the intuition how to react, or?
If you can say, if you have an idea of what made some people trust you,
yeah,
and if you had an intuition about it, like if you knew how people are going to react when they open the door.
No, I could never predict in that sense, because it could also change very quickly. For example, in the part in the film where a gate opens in this very big house, where the gate opens when I'm standing outside with the intercom. It was actually one of the first times during that shooting period when I was let inside. So then I expected a lot of hospitality, but then that turned out to be the least hospitable scene in the film, because he literally, of course, tries to break my camera in there. So it was very unexpected, and I think the reason is why people let me inside. I think it has to do with a connection, or a felt connection between people. So I would say the people that let me inside like could somehow familiarize with me as a person. So I remember the very first time I was let inside, that encounter is not in the film. It was like a very short film I made before this. And actually that, I remember that it almost felt like, you know, my father was opening the door. Although I never met him and I didn't knew him, but there was immediately a certain connection, and I was let inside very quickly, and he started talking even like more intimate than you see how people talk in the film. He talked about his divorce and handicapped daughter he had, and he went all the way in 15 or 20 minutes. But then I wasn't that far at that point, so I broke the code and I started talking. I couldn't like keep myself in the right guise, you could say. So unfortunately, that couldn't enter the film, that encounter. So, but so the short answer is, I think, to what extent do people identify with me as a person? I think that is the crucial element why people would trust me or not.
That's interesting. Unfortunately, we have to finish this conversation, and I'll just share with the audiences that you told us before that you are now talking to us from the grading room, working on your next film.
Yeah.
So I really hope we are going to see it soon, and
yes,
that we could share it with our audiences in next year's Docaviv.
Hopefully then for the first time I could be present at the Docaviv. I am vaccinated now, so maybe it's a possibility.
Hopefully you won't need that by next year, but who knows? And there is another question from the audience. We might take it just because we don't want to miss it. Can you maybe talk about the moments after? Did you turn off the camera and immediately reveal your reasons, or did you leave? Did you leave the place?
Yeah, I read the question now as well. I read the question that you turn on the camera and immediately reveal your read. Yeah, it depended. So if someone would throw the door or would respond like not necessarily offended, but if I would knew, you know, that person doesn't like for very clear reasons, I could completely understand my approach. And in most cases, I would just ring again and shortly explain what was the idea behind it and what was it for. And I would also have this letter that the material would be removed and not be used without consent. And like when I thought the reaction was response was very interesting. Then I gave him that letter, but I said if I would use it, then I would come back, and that's what we did. So there was quite a long process, and also a bit exciting because we were already editing. We were quite far, and then we still had to get all the permissions, because of course I couldn't get consent while shooting, also with Up and these especially the people towards the ending of the film. So that was and we were lucky enough fortunate enough that almost everyone agreed to be in the film, because probably they also appreciate that we went back all the way, and sometimes it was a drive, though the Netherlands is quite a small country, but still it could be a drive of 3 hours just to get consent, and that someone could turn up. It could turn out.
It wasn't immediately after.
No, it wasn't immediately after. It was just, I think, at the final stage of editing. Then we asked for consent of the people who then we wanted to be part of the film, or ended up in the cut. But I would explain about what I was doing most of the times when people would slam the door immediately in my face, or said that they didn't appreciate it at all, or I would have this letter that the material wouldn't be used without a permission.
Okay, Guido, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to mention to the audiences that the film is going to be available until the end of the month at the Docaviv website. So people can still watch it if you haven't already. And I want to thank you for the film and for the opportunity to share it with people here in Israel.
Thank you for screening the film.
So have a good day, and we're looking forward to seeing your next one.
Yeah, you will. You will. Hopefully soon.
Bye. Right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.